Thank you, Presiding Officer. My throat may mean I'll sit down early, and you'll welcome that, I'm sure. Let me just pick up the point that Finlay Carson was making. I think his comments are an abuse of parliamentary privilege, and I'll explain why. But we are granted privilege to protect us from the legal consequences of what we say for very particular purposes. The vote that Mr Finlay referred to never took place in the form that he refers to. And the reason is the clerks in the European Parliament recorded the SNP votes incorrectly, and it was corrected within hours of that being drawn to their attention. And therefore, anyone who asserts that it was otherwise, frankly, is abusing the privileges of this Parliament. Having said that, let me congratulate Finlay Carson, and I will join with him on this, so I shake hands across the chamber, having said what I've said, that when he refers to our brave fishermen, there will not be anyone in the chamber here who disagrees with that. We see it appearing in the government's motion. We've heard it from Colin Smith, and we all unite in understanding that. My very first constituency activity after being elected in 2001 was to attend the Fishermen's Mission in Peterhead for the presentation of a Royal Humane Society medal to a fisherman. This fisherman had been on a vessel off the coast of Greenland in, I can't remember, it was January or February, when there was ice on the superstructure of the fishing vessel, and one of the crew members got swept overboard. And this gentleman leapt into the sea, where the survival time was a matter of a few minutes, and rescued this fisherman and brought him back to safety. So that, for the very first activity of me and my constituency, did, for me, reinforce my previous understanding of the risks to which fishermen expose themselves and the bravery that they are prepared to show. Incidentally, the fisherman concerned said he was much more concerned at speaking to the audience who were there to see him receive his medal. And I sort of understand that. Now, to the matter in hand and the end-of-year negotiations, I do think there are, unusually this year, some particular and acknowledged difficulties with the scientific information. We've also got a long-run problem with some of the baselines for the scientific information, which I think it's time the scientists sought to do something about. They acknowledge that these difficulties are. It is not an exact science, let's not pretend that it is, but I think this year we're hearing of particular problems that there are. It's a great delight that Fergus Ewing has such a high regard for George Eustace in the UK government, his opposite number. But I do hope that in the aftermath of an election that we see Fergus Ewing taking the lead if George Eustace is not available, or more to the point, can't get any guidance from a new government. Now, where are we in the whole thing? The Conservative colleagues here are focusing on but one aspect of the industry when they focus on the catchers. Now, I brought to this chamber as a members' debate the Sea of Opportunity because I welcome the Sea of Opportunity for our catchers. But it cannot be disconnected from the seafood sector and the need for wider coastal communities to benefit, should it be that more fish can be caught by our fishermen and fundamentally landed in Scotland to be processed. But leaving the customs union and the single market presents immense challenges for the processing sector. And the processing sector is not just the big processors in my constituency, it's we smokehouses in the west coast of Scotland, where they're a vital part of very small communities. Unlike my constituents, they may employ one or two EU workers, which are vital to make that local enterprise work. And we're already seeing that workers are not so willing to come to the northeast and to elsewhere in Scotland as they once were, because of the devaluation of the pound, that's part of it, but the hostile immigration environment promulgated and operated by the UK Tory government. So if we cannot process the industry, and I think thousands of new jobs in processing is utterly fictional at a time when we've record vacancies in the northeast of Scotland in our processing industry, we have to have the same rights and privileges as our friends and colleagues across the Irish Sea in Northern Ireland are being given, where they're allowed to stay in the single market and the customs union. Our competitors and our rivals and undermining our industry, potentially. Let's just end by a little word about how well prepared the Tory government is for this sea of opportunity and everything that goes with it. 2 days before the end of October, 2 days before the end of October, the UK government still couldn't tell fish processors what label to print and put on the side of fish exports. That tells you something about the shambles of this Tory government's approach to fishing.